I want to talk about 12-team college football playoff, Alabama's place in it, or not, for the time being. I want to talk about a little bit of Lincoln Riley, Penn State, what's at stake for Penn State, what's at stake for USC. I want to talk a little bit about, well, is Kane Womack okay? Is that Alabama defense okay? What exactly has Vanderbilt done to the sport of college football? What can we continue to glean from that historic upset? And I want to get into, is it possible that Texas is looking ahead instead of focusing on the only rival not named Texas A&M that they have to beat? What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Thank you for watching the #1 college football show. If you are new here, please stay a while, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell so you don't miss any of the segments that are uploaded to the show, because we do keep it moving over here. Turns out your mans has lots to say, and he is always going to have some opinions. Appreciate y'all for rolling with me through week 7, which is going to be outstanding, man. Like, I've been excited about what is on the calendar for October 12th for months, because Ohio State, Oregon, Oklahoma, Texas, right? Didn't know that I wanted to watch Alabama, South Carolina, but now I want to watch Alabama, South Carolina, in addition to Colorado and Kansas State, and on down the line. But first, let us take a look at the college football playoff projections that I wrote at foxsports.com, where you can go read it. Matter of fact, y'all continue to make my top 25 at Fox, and the college football playoff projections at Fox, one of the most read things on the site, also shows that we really do care about rankings, that we really do care about projections, which are basically rankings, right? I'm the rankings guy in college football. It's one of the reasons that I love to talk about it, and I do it as often as I do. I think that the rankings matter. I've always thought the rankings matter. Preseason, postseason, they always matter to me, because when we get to moments like this, where October 13th, I expect there to be some moving and some shaking going on, they're absolutely positively going to matter, and we could see a new number one this week, just as we saw a new number one last week. So let's go with college football playoff projections as I see them. And what I usually do with this is I take my top 25 and then I whittle it to where it fits the definitions and the criteria that are provided by the College Football Playoff Selection Committee that will start ranking teams in earnest in about a month from now. So at number 1, I got Ohio State, Big Ten champ, projected Big Ten champ. Probably changes if something happens later this week, right? Number 2, I got Texas, who's coming off of a bye week, not unlike Oklahoma. Number 3, I got Miami. Number 4, I got Iowa State. Number 5, I got Oregon. Number 6, I got Georgia. Number 7, I got Penn State. Number 8, I got Clemson. Number 9, I have BYU. 10 is Tennessee. 11 is Oklahoma. 12 is Boise State. Those are the 12 seeded teams in my college football playoff projections. Texas moved up to number 1 in the AP top 25 because, well, the college football axiom had been activated. The college football axiom that has been activated is that anybody can get their ass beat anytime. That's what we learned last week. It's not just that 4 of the top 11 went down to unranked opponents. It's that those unranked opponents upset those top 11 on the road, which is, for the most part, some of them on the road. Vanderbilt was obviously at home. Arkansas was at home. Trying to think, who else was at home? Texas A&M was at home. I guess the point there is that they're not on the road. Who else was there? Arkansas. Somebody help me out. Arkansas, A&M, Vandy. Who else did we miss here? It'll come. Somebody was going to hit it up in the chat. But no, they weren't on the road. That's the take. They were not on the road. They were at home. So you have that going on. You also got Arkansas, who turned Tennessee into the Red Solo Cup of Volunteers that they so scrumptiously drank. And then we got what? We got A&M catching a tiger by its toe, when it hollers, put him in the figure four. That's what they did. Bama can get banged, slumped, and dumped by the Commodores. Called them Vanderbilt, B-U-I-L-T. My goodness. It's a Commodores reference. That's a Brick House reference. That's a Lionel Richie reference. Did y'all know that Lionel Richie owns 9 of the 11 blocks on Rodeo Drive? I didn't know that until I started looking up random facts about Lionel Richie because of what Vanderbilt did, because Vanderbilt is, mascot is Commodores. Say nothing of Cornelius Vanderbilt. Alabama lost to a Cornelius. I've been in enough fights now to where I fought a lot of different dudes with a lot of different names. I ain't never lost to a Cornelius. I don't know that I want to know if I lost to a Cornelius, but I've been fighting at this weight for like 6 years, so it's possible. But if you're a Cornelius and you got hands, maybe your last name is Vanderbilt, because that's what Alabama got, was these hands. I was thinking about this, man. Call Vanderbilt the home team, because Nick Saban was going, that's the only place in the entire SEC where you feel like you're the home team because you got more fans than they do. And they said, nah, we're going to beat up your Bama, and we're going to stand over your beaten body, and we're going to say, is this your king? Is this your king? Thou wast born of a woman, but swords I smile at, weapons laugh to scorn, brandished by a man that's a woman born. That's my man, Billy Shakespeare. That's Macbeth. Vanderbilt might suffer Macbeth's ultimate fate. Of course, he died. But herald me sing a song of dreams, one on that October 5th date. Man, I love me some Shakespeare. I do love the verse, and I do love to speak it. However, I got Alabama outside of the top 12 teams in college football, whereas the AP dropped them to 7th. And I believe that if you lost to Vanderbilt, you don't get to be a top 10 team. Not the week after you lose to Vanderbilt. I don't give a damn how good Vanderbilt looks to you. I don't care that we are all praising Diego Pavia, and we're also talking about Clark Lee nicely, and Jerry Kill seems to just know how to build winners over there. Put Jerry Kill on your staff, probably going to win some football games. I'm still looking at this going, you lost to Vanderbilt. Don't none of us lose to Vanderbilt, and you got to suffer the consequences being the number one team, the first number one team to take a loss to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt had lost 60 consecutive times to number 1 or number 5 teams, like 1 through 5, right? And then you are the first one to give up the booty to the Bilt. Come on now. Come on now. You can't be no top 10 team after that. Again, you lost to Cornelius. You know what I mean? You didn't lose to Kirby. You didn't lose to Dan. You didn't lose to Sark. You didn't lose to Ryan. You lost to Cornelius. Don't nobody lose to Cornelius. But Cornelius gave y'all that work, right? Beat you down. Tagged you like graffiti on one of his rail cars. Bama's loss to Vanderbilt also makes the whole Georgia loss to Bama look even worse, because Vandy lost to Mizzou. Mizzou lost to Georgia State and Georgia State. Mizzou lost to A&M. A&M lost to Notre Dame. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. Vanderbilt also was the first, or excuse me, not the first. It was the first time that we'd seen a number 1 get beat by Vanderbilt, but it was not the first upset of the day. And that was what made Saturday so cool. Is I don't know if we're going to see another Saturday like this. Like, I was just talking to a buddy of mine who roots for a blue blood. I'm not going to talk about that blue blood because that, of course. But the point would be, if we were Vanderbilt fans at this time, you would not be able to talk to us about anything ever. Every conversation would come back to, we beat Bama. We beat Bama. We beat number 1 Bama. We didn't beat no also ran Bama. We didn't beat no Mike Shula Bama. We beat number 1 ranked Alabama. Everything would come back to that. So if you're a Vanderbilt fan, be insufferable, my dude. You have earned it. It's also kind of looking at these college football playoff projections. Super conferences, they're a thing, man. You got 15 of the top 25 just in 2 conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC. So know all that. What are the projections right now, right? The projections are Texas at 1, ostensibly going to win the SEC. If they keep winning every game, why wouldn't they, right? 5-0. Ohio State at number 2, presumptive Big Ten champion, 5-0. Miami, a soft 6-0. Like, they got 2 losses. They just don't know it yet, right? That's how it feels, because they feel like they've been on borrowed time. When you are needing the officials' help to beat Virginia Tech at home, and you need to come back from 18 down to beat Cal on the road, that doesn't scream to me ACC champ. I don't give a damn how bad down the ACC seems to be, and they are down. Like, outside of Miami and Clemson, I don't know what we're really talking about on this one. Then you got Iowa State at number 4, which feels like okay, but the Big 12, the new Big 12 is a lot of fun, but I don't know if it's going to be strong. It's fun to watch, but I don't know how strong it's going to be. Then you have what I think is the more important conversations about who the 5 to 12 seeds are, right? The top 4 are going to be the highest ranked conference champions, okay? So then you have who basically played in those Power 4 conference championship games. Oregon at 5, 5-0. Georgia at 6, 4-1. Penn State at 7, 5-0. 8, Clemson, 4-1. 9 BYU 5-0, 10 Tennessee 4-1, 11 Oklahoma 4-1, and 12 Boise State. I'm going to get to the Oklahoma part here in a second. But what that means is basically you'd have Texas at 1, who gets the winner of BYU Tennessee, Ohio State at 2, who gets the winner of Penn State Tennessee. Penn State. I guess that'd be Clemson. Yeah. And then you'd have Iowa State, number 4. They're getting Penn State, Boise State. No, they're not. I guess hold on. Did I do this right? Now that I'm checking it in real time? No, it'd be BYU Clemson. It'd be Penn State Tennessee. It'd be Georgia Oklahoma. Yeah, all right, cool. All right, I had it right. This is let me check the one that I actually wrote down. Oh, bet. Okay. All right. There it is. So as we're talking through this, I just realized this. I'm still hung up on the number 5 matchup. That's why I circled this. All right, let me come back to this. At number 5, I think Oregon's in the best spot. And I'm not sure how you're going to take that going into the game against Ohio State on Saturday. But I believe that the best spot for anybody to be in is 5. Because at number 5, you're going to take on what we think is going to be the G5 highest-ranked conference champion. Right now, that's Boise State. If you're Oregon, you love to have that game. Because A, that game is in Autzen. And B, that game is against an opponent you already beat. And now you got tape of Ashton Jeanty, and you got tape of the Boise State offense run by Dirk Cotter. You got tape of Spencer Danielson's squad. You understand what you're up against, and I would expect an Oregon team that would play Boise State in December feels a lot better than an Oregon team that played them earlier in the year. Ashton Jeanty aside, we don't think that Boise State should be in that football game against Oregon. If Boise State could pull off the upset, great for them, but you're still going to go play Iowa State. Right? And if you're Oregon, that's what you want. You want to play Boise State, you want to play Iowa State, and then you get the number 1 ranked opponent, provided that they win their game against the 8-9 matchup to get to the spot. Be like, but they got the bye week. The bye week doesn't matter after you played a football game. It doesn't matter. The bye week matters for the next game you're going to play, not the next 2 games that you're going to play. So that's important to point out, right? As I'm already tripping over my own projections and rankings here. I also want to take into account here just how booty some of these games are going to be, because one of the things that was coming up is I'm doing my own college football playoff projections. You can do college football playoff projections based on almost anybody's rankings. All you got to do is make sure you got your 4 highest conference champions and then seed them according to who you think are the best teams from 5 to 12. Does Notre Dame fit in there? That's an interesting question, right? As my man Daniel pointed out, if you're Notre Dame, you're always sitting pretty in a 12-team playoff because you know you're getting a home game, because the highest you could be ranked is number 5, right? Would we send Notre Dame on the road? I sure as hell hope we would, because I hate that Notre Dame does not have to play a conference championship. And this year, they're the only Power 4 team that doesn't play 9 Power 4 opponents. They'll play 8. And they probably won't play another ranked opponent all year because Florida State is cheeks, not unlike Michigan. Matter of fact, that's the game that I would like to see right now. I would like to see Michigan and Florida State play. 2 places that ain't got no quarterbacks whatsoever. I think as we're talking through this, hold on. Yeah, I think as we're talking through this, my mama called me. I'm going to call my mama back. I'm not going to put my mama on blast right now. I think as we're talking through this, I would really like to see Michigan play Florida State because, well, Brock Glenn versus Alex Orji feels like a fair fight, right? Feels absolutely like a fair fight. Meanwhile, I would also very much like to see BYU versus Clemson, mostly because I think Clemson would love the opportunity to prove to you that they are still a good football team, because Clemson has won two national championships in the college football playoff era, and BYU is a team that we haven't really believed in like this since Zach Wilson was playing quarterback there. This is also, when you got Retzloff doing what he's doing, I got to really look at Keaton Slovis and ask, dog, what is it that you do here, right, among other things. And as I'm going down the list and I'm looking at these matchups, maybe we get Penn State, Tennessee. Maybe we get Georgia, Oklahoma. Georgia, Oklahoma feels like it could be cool because it's a rematch of the 2018 Rose Bowl, but that's not Lincoln Riley. We'll see, right? And I guess the point to all of this is that there's no Alabama in these college football playoff projections. Because there's no Alabama in these college football playoff projections, I'm sure that there are people that are watching this going, how could you not have Alabama in the college football playoff? They could still get there, right? They went out. They win the SEC championship. They're going to be one of the 4 highest-ranked conference champions in the sport. We know all of that. But I can't, in good conscience, put Alabama inside of this 12-team playoff when you lost 40-35 to Vanderbilt. Can't do it, especially when we still got undefeated teams. And we got teams with better losses than Vanderbilt. Like, Vanderbilt has really upset the apple cart on all of this because you either have to do one of two things. You have to say Vanderbilt is good. I'm not sure that there's enough people that want to say that Vanderbilt is good. You'd say Vanderbilt is not bad, but you would not say that they are good. And then you have to look at some of the losses that some of the other programs have taken, like Oklahoma to Tennessee, and say, is Tennessee still good, right? Because I think the Arkansas team that beat Tennessee is a better football team, a good football team, if you will, compared to Vanderbilt. For one, they have a winning record, right? There's that. Arkansas's loss to Oklahoma State is one thing, right? I get it. I understand. Their loss to Texas A&M looks even better now because Texas A&M unseated an undefeated Missouri. Missouri's loss to A&M still looks better than Alabama's loss to Vanderbilt. You know what I'm saying? The only one of these one-loss teams that I think you would have an argument with is Notre Dame, and I didn't put them in the 12-team playoff because I believe that Alabama and Notre Dame are both the same caliber of football team right now. Losing to Vanderbilt is as good as losing to Northern Illinois, if not worse, because Northern Illinois was at least ranked in the AP Top 25 the following week after they unseated Notre Dame on the road. We didn't do that with Vanderbilt because we can't do that with Vanderbilt because it's Vanderbilt. Get what I'm saying? Now, if you want to tell me that you think that Vanderbilt is good, by all means, stand on that limb. And I'll be curious to find out whether or not you're still on it when it breaks, because I just don't see that. They're better than they have been, but that does not make them good, right? It just does not make them the doormat in the SEC anymore, which is an accomplishment for Vanderbilt, not for anybody else. And I can keep going down the line here, right? Would you put an Alabama in with the one loss to Vanderbilt over an undefeated Indiana? No, you would not. And Indiana is not in this college football playoff, right? I keep going here. Navy, Army, are they a better team than Alabama? Probably not if you're taking your eye test, but they are undefeated. And that is where we also get back into the space what we were in with Florida State last year. Do we want to be the sport that is telling teams, players, parents, everybody associated with a university that you're not good enough to play in the college football playoff even if you're undefeated, because the roster doesn't look good, because the team on the field doesn't look as formidable as the one that Alabama fields? I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that person in this industry. I don't want the games to not matter. I believe that winning has to matter. We're moving the goalpost on this thing all the time because as much as y'all seem to care about blue bloods versus not, when it's your blue blood, you think they should be in. And I get that. I just want you to say it out loud. Don't be a coward about it, right? Come out and say, I would rather see a 2-loss Ohio State in the college football playoff than an undefeated Army, okay? And then be prepared to pull that opinion out and have people lambaste you for it because you are removing the one thing that is absolutely sacred about sports, the scoreboard. The scoreboard has to matter. If the scoreboard does not matter, we need to stop playing football games. Full stop. We need to stop. If we are not going to look at one tally being higher than the other and call that a winner and say that that is the way in which we are going to have our meritocracy, we need to stop because this is asinine, right? We're becoming a pageant contest, and I don't want that. I believe that there are better football teams, but I also believe that those football teams can get their asses beat, which is what Vanderbilt did to Alabama. And as much as Alabama fans hate it, Vanderbilt provided the kind of belief and faith in college football that we needed. We needed to know that a Vanderbilt is capable, right? We needed to see that because we watched Cincinnati get beat down by Alabama in the college football playoff. You've got Central Florida coming out here saying, hey, look, we're the 2017 national champs. We don't care what you say. I think we need that. I think we need that because not everybody's going to be Bama. Not everybody's going to be Ohio State. Not everybody's going to be Georgia. Not everybody's going to be Clemson. Not everybody's going to feel as if they're going to have an opportunity to win a national championship every single year. Sometimes you just get lucky that one year, and we need to honor that. We need to honor that. So if we get into the space 5 to 12, where you got to put in, say, an Indiana that lost to Nebraska, or Nebraska that lost to Colorado, over an Alabama that lost to Vanderbilt, that's what you have to do. That's what the sport demands. Otherwise, you're begging people to question your integrity every step of the way. And the only thing that I have in this game is my authenticity and my integrity. And I'm not going to cheapen that by saying I would much rather see a better ball game with Alabama playing whomever than see Army or Indiana or anybody else that earned that opportunity get into that game. I think that is most important, right? So as we're getting into this, and I talked about there no Alabama in my college football playoff projection, I have a question that also relates to Alabama. Is Kane Womack all right? Is he okay? Is Alabama okay? Because for the last 6 quarters, they haven't seemed okay. Matter of fact, they've seemed a lot like Lincoln Riley's Oklahoma, if we're being honest about it, over there at Bama, where they can put up a bunch of points, but they can't stop nobody. Alabama allowed 166 rush yards on 54 carries against Vanderbilt. 166 for 54 is 3.1, but still gave up 166, which means also that Vanderbilt was able to keep the ball. And then when you're throwing the ball and it turns into the kind of pick that goes for an interception, then you got a problem, right? So Vanderbilt was able to run the ball consistently enough to hold the ball and defend Alabama just enough to where Bama had to climb back and didn't have enough time to go get the W late because, well, Diego Pavia is onions, and he was making the kinds of plays that you need to make to win that game to run out that clock. Also means that Alabama has given up 12 of its last 18 third down attempts. Think about that. Vanderbilt converted 12 of 18 against Alabama. First, you got 18 third downs to try to attempt, which is in and of itself, no matter who you're playing, that's a feat. And then you converted 66% of them. That's a wild number. Means that Bama has been bad about stopping the run and bad on third down. Put the Malachi Moore bit to the side over there. Who else do we have to pick on for this? Because this is not the kind of defense that we have come to know from Alabama. If nothing else, Nick Saban had always fielded a defense. The offense might be murder ball or man ball or spread or RPO or air raid. It could be any number of things on offense, but defensively, you knew what a Nick Saban defense was going to do. They were going to stop the run, and they were going to stop you on third down. Kane Womack apparently has a problem there, just in the last 2 games. But Georgia is not Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt damn sure ain't Georgia. You got to get that fixed because you're going to face another opponent in South Carolina that's got a quarterback that can make plays. Now, did he make plays against Ole Miss? No, he did not. But Lenore Sellers made plays against LSU. Okay? Rocket Sanders can run the ball. If Shane Beamer gets out of his own way, not making stupid calls on fourth down, maybe they can absolutely push you. And I don't know what we would do with an Alabama that takes a second loss, right? I've not put them in my college football playoff projection this week. I didn't say they were out of the CFP race. They're still in it, to answer the question in the headline, right? It's more like you have no margin for error here because you need some help to get in the SEC championship, or you, at the very least, you got to beat Tennessee, who's going to be in a we got to win it game with you. Missouri, who's going to be in a we got to win it with you, all the way down the line, right? Losing to Vanderbilt just upsets what we think is going to happen next. Next thing that I think that we have to worry about here, if we're talking about the college football playoff, is who the 1 seed is based on this following weekend. Because an interesting thought occurred to me, and I'm sure that Oklahoma fans are going to feel some kind of way about this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Is Texas more concerned about beating Oklahoma or Georgia? It's a very good question because Texas not only has Oklahoma on Saturday, but Georgia the next week and Vanderbilt the following week. So they have something, they have the opportunity to be absolutely funny, which, regardless of what they do against OU, you could beat Georgia and lose to Vanderbilt, and that would be hilarious, right? That would absolutely upset everything we know about college football. Because Texas is the least flawed team in all of college football. Everybody's got flaws, but they are the least flawed. And they get Quinn Ewers back this week. So how much do you think Texas is looking forward to beating Oklahoma, or worried more about what they got to show against Georgia the following week? Because you know that Kirby Smart had already circled that game on the calendar like we did to say we need to have something in reserve to go after Texas because we expect Texas to be good. Did anybody expect Oklahoma to be bad? No. And for what it's worth, Oklahoma is not bad. Oklahoma is a 4-1 program. They just look shaky as all hell. There's no getting around that part. There's no offense at Oklahoma to speak of, right? Can't run the ball well, depleted wide receiving core, a patchwork offensive line, true freshman quarterback. Michael Hawkins Jr. has been playing above his head. Maybe that continues, right? Maybe you get some spark. Maybe you get some shine. Maybe the rush attack comes to life, but that Texas defense has been elite. To say nothing of what Quinn Ewers is capable of, right? Quinn Ewers is capable of absolutely torching Oklahoma. Despite what I think about Connie Walker, despite what I think about Billy Bowman, despite what I think about Danny Stutzman or R. Mason Thomas, he's got that in his bag. You got Isaiah Bond, who can take the top off the defense. You got Ryan Wingo, who is the least talked about true freshman who is absolutely torching people. Love me some Ryan Wingo. Matter of fact, this 2024 wide receiver class is legitimately awesome. It has a chance to go down as the best wide receiver class that we've ever seen. When you take into account Ryan Wingo bringing up the rear, Cam Coleman kind of being hit or miss, but being good, right? And then Ryan Williams, and then Jeremiah Smith, right? I wonder if you're Steve Sarkisian, how much you've had to beat into your players, that they still have more to show. They still have more to prove, that no matter that they've been the number one team twice this year, that their win against Michigan doesn't mean as much as it used to. You still need to beat Oklahoma because Oklahoma has the gold hat in Norman. They're bringing it down to Austin for the game. They expect to return with it. That game in Dallas, not in Austin, that game in Dallas has always meant the world to Oklahoma. I don't know it always means the world to Texas. I know that Oklahoma sells out every time they get an opportunity to play Texas, whether it was in the Big 12 championship game or in the Red River rivalry. And in years past, that game has been basically for who's going to play in the national championship game. That was the 2000s on either end of USC dominating the sport, right? And then you got the SEC really coming of age in 2009, and it's been that way ever since. I hope that Texas is not looking past Oklahoma, because if they are and they lose that game against Georgia doesn't have the glare that it once did, like the shine that's coming off of it. However, you beat up on Oklahoma by 50, you get to keep your number one ranking, and that is not assured, right? One of the things that I thought was interesting about going into this week is we have number 2 at number 3, which is perfect. Ohio State at Oregon, where Oregon has been 43-3 over the last 7 years. If Ohio State beats Oregon, that's the number one team in the country. They're undefeated with the best win, right? If Oregon beats Ohio State, that's the number one team in the country. They're undefeated with the best win. It's that simple. Covering the spread for Texas isn't enough. The spread on Sunday, at least, was 14.5 points. You win by 2 touchdowns, that's what you're supposed to do. But what is your signature win? It's a 2-loss Michigan, or is it a 1-loss Oklahoma? An Oklahoma that many people would tell you doesn't look like a 4-1 team. Looks more like a 2-2 team. That win against Tulane, as Daniel pointed out, it looks better now, but it doesn't look great. You know, it's still Tulane. If you're doing the thing where you're trying to measure people's resumes when they got the same amount of wins, you're probably going to come to the same arithmetic that I do, which is that Ohio State or Oregon will be the number one team in the country on Sunday. It's just a matter of which, and that's why we're going to play the game. For Texas, though, if Steve Sarkisian is keeping his word when he says, you know, with all due respect, it doesn't matter what y'all think of us, then you should win the game. And if you are the number 2 team in the country, be happy about that, because you don't care about the rankings until the season ends. And then when the season ends, we can have that discussion. But right now, Texas feels like a national championship contender. And I think there's maybe 3 other teams that can make that claim right now. Everybody else has shown themselves to have some really great flaws. Also shown what the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness can do for the sport. Now, on the one hand, you'll tell me that the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness makes way for Vanderbilt to upset Alabama. I think there's something to that. What I think there's more to is just how much we know about each other. Because as quiet as it is kept, Sam Houston is also a one-loss team. They were 3-9 last year. Did they benefit from name, image, and likeness the way that others did? I don't think so, right? I think some of this is we're in a really cool part of the experience in watching college football. Players are more ready-made to play out of high school than they've ever been. You have freshmen that will show up and take starting positions away from veteran players because they're just more talented, and they pick up the scheme just a little bit more quick or a little bit quicker. I think if you're going to extend name, image, and likeness in the transfer portal to Vanderbilt, you have to extend it to the rest of college football. As we're continuing to see realignment change, which is realignment is a constant in the sport now. We have seen realignment going on for years now, right? You want to take it back to 2010 when it felt like both Oklahoma and Texas could have been Pac-12 members at one point, and it felt like Larry Scott had this thing humming right along. Then you take it to 2024 where you have 18 teams in the Big Ten, 16 teams in the SEC, and the Mountain West is fighting for its life while the Pac-12 is coming back to life. Nobody could see that coming. Because you have that such movement, you have to have guys, players, and coaches who can adapt on the fly and make this work. And you're getting to see what the cream looks like when it rises to that. I think what Texas has benefited from is being able to keep its core because it's got enough money to pay everybody to keep everybody happy. That means the coaching staff and the players, right? That's important. On the other side, you could have coaches that are not adapting as well, which leads me to the conversation that I kind of want to have about Lincoln Riley and whether or not he's all right. Because I'm looking at this, and we're a long way from the Holiday Bowl. We're a long way from Miller Moss throwing for 6 TDs and looking like, oh, Lincoln Riley just picks a quarterback, and that guy is going to be a Heisman Trophy finalist. It's not out of the question, but it's really, really hard for Miller Moss at this point. Because we're talking about a Lincoln Riley USC that is 10-5 in its last 15 games. But more than that, Clay Helton went 23-9 through his first 32 games. Lincoln Riley has gone 22-10. This year, he does not have a Heisman Trophy at quarterback, we think. I think we know, but we think. Let's be kind about it. And even when he had one in Caleb Williams last year, they went 7-5. The offensive line, Josh Henson's offensive line, has not been great, even as the defense has gotten better. And what was really an inflection point and glaring to me is USC could only put up 17 points against Minnesota last week in their loss. Why is that important? Because the fewest amount of points scored by Lincoln Riley football teams have come in the 2021 season. 23 against Nebraska in a win, 16 against West Virginia in a win. That's a problem. I don't know if y'all know this, SC fans, but after scoring that low total at Oklahoma, he bolted and went to LA. Now you're getting to see what it feels like to root for a Lincoln Riley coach team that can't score. That's the one thing you've been able to depend on. Matter of fact, going into this year, one of the things I would tell folks is that Lincoln Riley's football teams put up 40 or more 50% of the time. They have struggled to do that in Big Ten play. They have struggled to win games in Big Ten play. Some of this, I think you have to attribute to time zones just because the statistics are so out of whack, man. I mean, like, Big Ten teams traveling across 2 or more time zones are 1-8. The only win is Indiana at UCLA. UCLA is not good. Indiana seems to be. But also, Indiana played a Friday game the week before they played that game to UCLA and had a little bit more time to adapt. Outside of that, if you're traveling 2 time zones, you've taken an L, which does not bode well for Ohio State, I might add, as they're going to be traveling to the West Coast to play this game on Eastern time, right? I'm curious what you think Lincoln Riley's ceiling and USC ceiling is this year, because if they lose to Penn State this year, this week, and James Franklin gets to move to, what looks like it's going to be 6-0, it's going to be difficult to defend what's going on in LA right now. We don't know how good Penn State is. As a matter of fact, we have him at number 4 because we kind of have to have him at number 4. Why do we have Penn State at 4? Because we can't put Iowa State there, because you will not suffer that. Nobody's going to let that pass. Back to you believe in brands, right? Doesn't matter that Iowa State has a really great win against a decent Big Ten opponent in Iowa. It only matters that they're Iowa State, right? Penn State benefits from Joe Paterno, benefits from being the kind of program that you could depend on to play in a meaningful bowl game at the end of the year, whether they are independent or Big Ten members. As we're talking about SC, though, we're talking about a program that has won 11 national championships and loves its Heisman winners. We're talking about a program that has some truly fair weather fans when we're talking about attending games. A lot of USC fans work in media, right? Work in film, work in entertainment. They don't really have as many fans that are regular-ass people like you or me, or like the folks that root for Arkansas or root for Nebraska or even Tennessee for that matter, or Bama. People that have to show up to work and talk about this stuff, okay? You show up to work and you got to talk about this stuff as a USC alumnus. You're probably working in Silicon Valley. Somebody went to Stanford, right? Somebody went to Cal. They kind of sort of like college football, but only when their teams are good. I'm curious how long a leash you're going to give Lincoln Riley before you decide you got to do something if you're Jen Cohen. You know, like if you take a loss to Penn State and you move to 3 losses and you're looking around and you're going, are we going to get to 8 wins? You got to do some soul searching. I don't think they're going to pull a trigger on Lincoln Riley like that. I do know that he is starting to show a little bit of signs of frustration. He snapped at a reporter about a question that was supposed to be asked to Jamil Muhammad, and I to be fair, I don't think it was a fair question to ask the head coach, but I also don't think snapping at the guy was the right thing to do. Either way, you could see that the Minnesota loss was starting to eat at them in a way that the Michigan loss quite didn't. You also add to this that the Minnesota team that beat them isn't great. They're probably as good as Michigan is, if not a little bit better, because I go back to that onside kick. Referees get it right. Minnesota gets the ball. It looks like Minnesota's going to score, because Minnesota has scored 21 consecutive points in the fourth quarter. Add to that what Lincoln Riley's USC allowed. They had a 7-point lead going into the fourth quarter against Minnesota, and they lost that game by 7. It feels a lot like the kind of losses that Oklahoma fans would rue. Up 17 against Georgia, going into halftime, you squib kick it, you give them the ball back, they go score, they win the game in double overtime. There's something about being able to finish games with Lincoln Riley football teams that we need to start investigating. We need to start taking a look at. We need to start to understand. I'm not quite sure what that thing is. I'm not even quite sure that it is as big a problem as we would make it to be. I am saying that wins and losses matter. I am saying that I did not expect USC to have 2 losses ahead of their game against Penn State. I thought that would be a matchup of 2 undefeated opponents. And then we get to find out who might be the 3rd or 4th best team in the Big Ten, as we are still pretty much in consensus that Ohio State and Oregon are the 2 best teams in the Big Ten. And now we got to a place where Texas is the only undefeated team left in the SEC. And this felt like a really good year for USC to try to jump up and take one of these college football playoff spots, right? Because Lincoln Riley had not have a problem getting to the playoff at Oklahoma. He did go to SC because, and he said at the time, I don't have what I need at Oklahoma to win a national championship. He thought he could get that at a place that he thought he could turn into the mecca of college football in LA. Mecca and LA don't rhyme. That's one. Leading college football in LA doesn't really rhyme either. College football is mostly a southern sport. College football is played in places where we don't have NFL teams, and they got 2. Okay? Add to this the move to the Big Ten, right? Which I think is going to benefit everybody in the Big Ten from the long run, but right now feels like if you're a West Coast team, you're playing at a disadvantage. Okay? We'll see how that disadvantage may or may not show up the rest of the way. But it felt like this year was the year for teams like Penn State, teams like Tennessee, teams like USC to make the college football playoff for the first time, because we extended by 8 teams. You've literally got 3 times as many chances to get into that thing as you did before. And Penn State is holding up their end. Tennessee is holding up their end. It's SC that's not holding up theirs. I don't know if you can miss the college football playoff more than once and continue to be head coach at USC, given it's a 12-team playoff. That seems difficult. That seems hard. That seems as if they're not going to let you figure this out. Do I think that Lincoln Riley will figure this out? I do. I really do. He's a very smart man. He's a very good coach, and he is one of the best quarterback developers in history. Just check the resume. But in as far as building teams that can win national championships, he still ain't done that. And this USC team does not feel like the one that is going to win a national championship. They run the table. Let's assume this. Let's assume they run the table. Are they getting into the playoff? Maybe. I don't think it's a sure thing. And that's what I think should terrify you as a Trojan fan. You would think that a 10-win USC team gets into the playoff. Not if you got an 11-win Notre Dame, right? Which would be a win that you would have to have at the end of the season, right? Would a 10-win A&M get in over a 10-win SC? I think so. Given what we've seen from Missouri so far, given what we've seen from A&M, given what we've seen from Notre Dame. These are questions that make the sport, I think, a little bit more open to talking about. And a little bit more fun, if we're being honest about it, than it is for folks that don't watch college football as religiously as we do. The folks that don't seem to like college football's 12-team playoff are people that watch the NFL on Sundays. Not to say the college football fans don't, but you're primarily watching the NFL on Sundays. You're primarily showing, if your lead segment to your sports talk show is an NFL segment, you do not do college football. That's just not what it is. Because the NFL is always going to rate, right? It's always going to outrate college football, no matter what you're talking about. You want to talk about the Dallas Cowboys? You want to talk about Ohio State? It feels like the Cowboys are going to win out. Same thing with the Steelers, so that I'm not just picking on the Cowboys. I think as we are hearing more people that seem to have an opinion that is negative about the 12-team playoff, I would ask you to ask them, who's your team? Who's your college football team? Who did you watch this week? Did you watch when Georgia played Tennessee Tech? No? Okay, then I would not like to hear your opinion. Okay? I'm going to watch Oklahoma play Maine because I'm that kind of guy, right? You're that kind of person. Did you watch Texas play UTSA? Did you watch Texas play ULM? Or are you only watching Texas play Oklahoma? Many of the people that don't like the 12-team playoff only watch 2 or 3 games a year. They can't tell you who the starting offensive line is on the team they even claim to care about. Okay? Bear that in mind as we're talking about these things that relate to Lincoln Riley, to USC, to Big Ten championships, to SEC championships, and what this weekend might wrought. Last thing I want to leave you with on this one is I hope we have more Week 7s. I hope we have more games where we all know who the top 25 teams are, and we get to see these top 25 matchups play out, and we get to see whether or not Travis Hunter can lead Colorado past Kansas State and perhaps put them in a position to win the Big 12 championship. We get to see whether or not Oklahoma figures that out against Texas, or maybe Texas is not that good. And more than that, we get to get a real feeling for who the best teams in college football are, right? Like we did with Georgia, Alabama, and then Vanderbilt happened. Because that's the other thing that I'm looking at. Because I think Ohio State has Indiana later in the season. What if Indiana's good? Indiana beats Ohio State. Ohio State makes the Big Ten championship game, and they win the Big Ten championship with one loss to Indiana. Does Indiana get in? Be an interesting question to ask. Okay? I'm just throwing that out there. All right. That is going to do it for tonight's live episode of the #1 college football show. If you like the show, please consider subscribing to the show, and we will see y'all on the flip side tomorrow. Doses.